The primary goal of this analysis is to understand the effectiveness of the chip return as compared to the topspin return. The engine of our analysis is a statistical model that takes into account a great variety of relevant variables and spits out an estimated probability that the returner wins the point. The model is estimated on 1,451 first serve returns observed in 20 matches played during the 2021 Brest Challenger tournament. We find that a good chip return should be played low and with sufficient depth and width to the server's forehand. If these three guidelines are followed, the chip return can be a high-risk, high-reward alternative to the topspin return. Before commenting on these partially surprising results, let's take a look at the model's suggestions in greater depth. The first situation we evaluate is a serve out wide from the server's forehand side, that is, the do side for a right-handed server or the ad side for a lefty server. The orange area shows the target zone for the returning player on a topspin shot. The target zone is where the model suggests to aim the return. If the ball lands within the target zone, the returning player has a probability of winning the ongoing point greater than 50%. In this situation, our model believes it is best to hit the topspin return cross-court. As for a low chip return, the model suggests going cross-court also at a more acute angle. Note that we differentiate between a low chip and a high chip. The low chip is closer to a traditional slice, whereas the high chip is a floating chip with a high arc and a high bounce. We differentiate between these two kinds of chip return because our data shows that the low chip and the high chip return are distinct shots that are employed with purpose. In any case, the target zone for the high chip is considerably smaller and deeper than the other zones. Let's zoom in on the target zones a bit more closely. The flags indicate the highest returner win probability spot within the target zone for each of our three return types. For example, if a typical topspin return lands exactly at the base of the orange flag, the point will be won by the returner 57% of the time on aggregate. Let's quickly cycle through the other cases. First, a serve down the middle from the server's forehand side. Consider now a serve down the middle from the server's backhand side, that is, the ad side for a right-handed server or the do side for a lefty server. Finally, we have a serve out wide from the server's backhand half of the court. Our model likes the topspin return cross-court if pulled out wide, and anywhere between the server's feet and away from the server if returning from the middle. The chip return should be aimed at the server's forehand, according to the model. A chip of any kind typically has a smaller target zone than the topspin return. In this sense, it is high risk. There is less room for error. On the other hand, in 3 out of the 4 cases, the peak returner win probability is higher for the low chip than the topspin return. In this sense, it is high reward. The exception is the serve out wide from the server's backhand side. Here, the topspin has both the highest peak and the largest zone, making it clearly the best option. That the chip return is a viable alternative to the topspin return if played to the server's forehand is somewhat unintuitive. For one, at first glance it appears that the chip return is generally an inferior choice. Over our entire sample, the returner's win percentage is 39.6% when returning with topspin, but only 19.9% when playing a chip, a seemingly insurmountable deficit of almost 20%. Even when applying adjustments that serve to negate some statistical biases in the naive average, the difference in win rate is still at 12%. It also appears that targeting the forehand on a chip return is slightly uncommon. Taking a look at where the chip return typically lands, we see a clear preference for the backhand side on aggregate. Only 40% of returns land in the forehand half of the server's court. For topspin returns, we see virtually the same overall distribution. Again, the split is 60-40 in favor of the backhand side. However, only for the chip return, the split is inconsistent with our model results. So chip returns to the forehand are unintuitive and somewhat uncommon, but they can be explained. 3 factors lead our model to consider them a viable alternative to the topspin return. Firstly, the longer travel time of a chip allows returns to the backhand to be run around, enabling the server to go for a forehand inside out or inside in. Second, longer travel time means more time for the returner to reposition, making the chip return down the line more viable, especially on serves out wide. By contrast, the topspin return has to go cross court on serves out wide, according to our model. Finally, there is evidence for the server typically being slightly too impatient on chip return serves +1. The model believes that a chip return to the forehand can coax the server into premature aggression and entice an error by the server. All these factors lead our model to like the forehand side chip return as a viable alternative to the topspin return. Naturally, against any specific player, the optimal return strategy may be very different. However, this analysis provides evidence that chipping the ball back into play low to the forehand may be an underutilized strategy on aggregate.